everybody and welcome back to the Tuesday challenge. This is the third of the Altered Index 2024. The last two have gone very well, and I'm really excited to see all of the creations that you guys have been making as well, following along with the prompts. So this week our 3 prompts for this card. The word is create. The colour is rusty. Now rusty can be any colour that you like, obviously, so long as it is within the rusty range. So it's going to be things like browns, reds, oranges, that kind of thing. So almost autumnal colours. But yeah, so rusty is the colour. And the thing, the item, is thread. So these are the 3 prompts for this time. Now I've had a little bit of a think about what I wanted to create. And I've had in my stash for a while, and I've always wanted to use it. It's one of the Tim Holtz Alterations dies, and it's old jalopy, so I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but it's one of those old-fashioned style cars. And I thought I could really kind of rust this up for the rusty colour and create some kind of scene with that car. So I have already die cut the car out, and I have laid the pieces down, so I'm being very careful. Nothing's been stuck down yet. I did actually have to Google what the car looked like, because I brought this die in a D-stash group, so it didn't come with a picture or an image or anything. It was just as you see it here. So I can see the different parts, but I wasn't quite sure if these were the wheels or where this bit went. So yeah, I did have to look it up, but this is how the car goes together. So we've got a little number plate here, we've got the wheels, we've got the kind of arch, and then the wheel arch here. But yeah, so obviously this is what I want to rust up. This is going to be my rusty car. And I did check the size. It fits nicely on this card as well, which I think is really cool. And then I was thinking of creating some kind of road. I bought a little while ago, again from a D-stash group, and this was brand new actually, and it's a distress powder, but it's that weather-worn look. So this one's actually scattered straw, but I thought for like a dusty road I could kind of have that going along, and then I'm going to use thread to kind of create the kind of grassy areas on either side. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for this card. So thread for kind of my grass area. Rusty is how the car hopefully will look after I've finished, and the create is kind of just the creating of the scene. I might put the word create on here somewhere, I haven't decided that yet. But yeah, let's try and see if we can distress this car. So I'm going to move the cards out of the way for a moment, so we don't need those. Now, to be able to get this as a kind of aged look, I'm just going to move everything over a little bit. I'm going to move my car. What I was thinking of doing is using a mixture of embossing powders and inks to be able to kind of grunge up this car. So first of all, the different inks and oxides that I've got. I've actually got one that's called Rusty Hinge, so I thought that one would be perfect. I've got a fossilized amber to kind of get, again, the kind of yellowish tones. I've got a green to get those deep green tones that you might get, and ground espresso, so for like the darker areas as well. So they're the different colours that I'm going to use to kind of age the car. And then to kind of help with the rusty look, I do have a kind of kettle copper, and I've got a bit of a green as well. So I'm thinking mixing them both together might get me the colours that I would like. So what colour is this? Earth tone olive, and then as I said, I've got kettle copper as my other embossing powder. So because I don't want to just go all gun-ho on here and then it all go wrong, I have got the scrap left over, so I'm going to do a little bit of testers on here first, only because I don't want to ruin my car. It's the first time that I'm playing with it, so I'm quite excited. I'm just going to move the distress inks up to the top. I'm also going to bring in my gel plate, so I do apologise for the glare. I might see actually if if it's a bit better being on this side. It might be. Let's move that car. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? So we'll have the gel plate on that side. Okay, so what I'm thinking is just putting some inks down and then splotching it on here and seeing how it looks. So we'll do a couple of testers just to kind of see how it goes. So obviously rusty hinge is a must because it is rusty. So I'm just going to put some of that down. Just to kind of have a couple of darker bits, I'm also going to pop in some of that. I'm going to give it a little squirt with water just to kind of loosen it up a little bit. And then we'll just kind of see how it looks, I think. Okay, so that's quite a nice colour. Let's try and pick up some more of that. Okay, so obviously with this being craft card, it is quite dark anyway. So we've got our browns. I'm then going to put down a little bit of the green and some yellow as well. Again, just going to give it a bit of a squirt just to kind of help move it around a little bit. And then I'm just going to dab it in and kind of see how that looks. So we've got the kind of greens in there again. This dries very quickly. This really does kind of soak up those inks. But I'm getting a nice distressed look actually, which I'm quite happy with. Yeah, I think I'm quite happy with that. So now that it's done that, I'm going to end up with very inky fingers, aren't I? Never mind. Right. I'm going to go back to some rusty hinge. So I'm going to put some rusty hinge down. And only a little bit of the ground espresso this time. Okay, and then taking my car, I don't want the wheel pieces. I'm going to try and pull it off in the order that it goes. So I know you can't see it down here in the corner. I'm just trying to remember where things go. So this is the main car. This is what I'm going to just try and cover. Okay, so I'm just going to, again this time, put some green in. Oops! Put a bit of the yellow in. Give it a squirt of water. And just try and pick some of this up around it as well. Okay, so that looks pretty cool actually. Let's put that down and let that dry. Right, so for these bits, I'm probably not going to ink these in the same way. These I am going to do differently. So I'm just going to clear up the board. I'm going to heat gun this so it just dries a little bit quicker, and then we can work on these pieces. Okay, so that's turned out really well. I've dried that off now and you can see the colour difference. It looks so rustic. Which is obviously perfect and just what I was kind of going for. So now thinking about all of the accessories that go on top. For this I'm going to use some embossing powders and I'm going to use the Kettle Copper and the Earth Tone Olive. So I've got a piece of scrap paper and I'm just starting with the wheel arch and the license plate. And I have already started to kind of ink them up with my embossing ink. I've put a little bit of the green on. I'm just going to do the copper now. So I'm just lightly sprinkling here and there. It doesn't matter if it's obviously a bit patchy, because again it's supposed to look a bit rustic, so that's absolutely fine. So again, I'm just going to pick these up, give them a little bit of a shake off, and you can see then we've got a mixture of the copper and the green on there. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. Do the same on this one, shake off any excess that we've got there. Okay, so I'm going to heat set those. I am going to turn the sound off for this because obviously it's extremely noisy, but I'm just going to bring the pieces back in. Okay, so let's see how that all looks on here now. So I'm really loving those colours. That is looking super rusted, isn't it? Yeah, very happy with that. So we've got some cool greens on there. Looks very sort of mossy and old, doesn't it? Right, so then that leaves us with these. So what I was thinking for the wheels is again having maybe a little bit of embossing on there, but I do want to kind of like make the tyres look a little bit worn. Okay, so to make these look a little bit aged, I'm going to use Vintage Photo, and I'm going to use a dabber. And I'm just going to sort of start from the middle and just kind of go out a little bit. And it's just then so they just don't look smooth. So it's something like that. And then I'm thinking around the edges, I'm just going to work out, let's move those pieces. Just going to work out which way up they go. So I think that one goes like that. So I'm trying to follow, this has got like a little embossed edge. So that goes that way up. And that one must be that way then. Yeah, so that one goes there. So for the kind of middle, I have this Ranger pen, it's the Perfect Medium. So I'm just thinking, so in the middle, I'm just going to kind of draw a circle, but I'm just trying to not make it quite so straight, since obviously these aren't perfect circles either. And also a little bit just along the edge. Whoops. Okay, and for that I'm going to use the copper again. So I'm just going to move those over, open this out. Now obviously the Distress Oxide will hang on to some of that ink as well, and I don't mind that because again it just kind of adds to that effect. If you don't want that to happen, then you have to wait for your ink to like completely dry before you do this. But as you can see, just sort of flicking it off, you kind of get rid of most of the extra powder. So I'm just going to pour that in there. and then grab the heat gun. So again, I'm just going to put this bit on silent because it obviously does get quite noisy. Okay, so those are the tyres, and as I said, it just kind of gives it a little bit extra. I mean, I'm quite tempted to also maybe go over them. I don't know, do I want some black in there as well? I mean, that green does look good, I do like that. Okay, I think I'm just going to start sticking bits down. I think I might just go around the edge with my ground espresso. Okay, right, let's get some of these elements stuck down. So we'll start with the wheels. Oh. Okay, then the wheel arch. As I say, I've had this die in my stash for a long time and I've wanted to use it, but I've just been thinking, well, okay, when is it going to fit into a project? So my daughter's the one that's been pulling out these prompts. And yeah, when I saw Rusty, I thought, oh, I can actually use the car. Okay, so that's that on there. Then we've got the number plate. Oops. Okay, I just think that looks so cool. I'm really, really happy with that. Okay, so I just want to think about how this is going to obviously look on the card. So I'm going to need some kind of blue or something, aren't I, on the background. Okay, so I've got this colour here, which is an Oasis green, but it is quite a blue colour. And I don't mind that it's not a perfect sky blue either, because obviously that just kind of adds to the fun. I actually seem to be getting more ink on my fingers than anywhere else on this project. So I'm just going to use my mat. I mean, obviously I can clean this off afterwards, so I'm not fussed about my mat. This is a messy mat. So I'm just going to lightly blend out a sky. It doesn't, again, have to be too dark. I just don't want it white. So I'm just going to come around all of the edge. Okay, so my path, I said I wanted to use this. So as well as the bullet point, I've got a brush version of this. So here's my brush pen. So I'm just going to, and it's going to be very rough, I'm just going to brush in a little section, and again, it's not going to be even, it doesn't need to be even. and then this is going to be my road. So I'm just going to pop that in there. Okay, so this is the first time I'm using this stuff, and it's actually really cool. It actually looks like sand and feels like sand. It's quite cool. I'm going to come back in with my dobber, and I'm just going to kind of brush over and kind of go in the gaps a little bit, because again it's like an old dusty road. Okay, so there's my dusty road. So now the fun part is obviously the grass. Now this is where I'm obviously going to bring in my thread. Now I have these kind of like homemade boxes, and this one has all of my threads in. So again, I've got quite a nice sort of mossy colour there. I think the other colours are possibly a bit too bright. I mean, the dark colour might be okay. Maybe we can mix. Yeah, so I'm going to mix the two of those. So using up a lot of my stash with this one, which is good, because again, they're all things I've had for a while. So I'm just going to grab a load. That's that. I'm going to do the same with this one. So you can see these haven't even been used yet. Now I could have actually done some sewing, which obviously was an option as well, but I didn't fancy sewing. So this is going to become my grass. And again, I just think it looks fun. I mean, fair enough, it does look a bit like a child's done it, but it's fun. So that's going to go down the bottom. I think I kind of want to add some more detail to this car. So before I stick everything else down, I mean, I could apply a layer of glue down there, which I think I'm going to do. I am just going to put in a little bit of green just along this bottom edge though, just so that once my string's down, it's not quite so white in some of the gaps. Right, let's add some details to this car. Okay, so I have a fine liner. I'm just thinking I might kind of go across all of the outlines. So we've got a groove here, which I'm going to try and fill in a bit. And I kind of want to draw around the elements that we've got as well, just to kind of make them pop a little bit more. Because they don't feel overly defined at the moment. Oops. Right, okay, so there's my car. So I've kind of doodled a few more details on there. I've also inked around with my ground espresso as well, just to kind of give it that bit more definition. So that's going to be my little car on there. And then I'm going to add my grass with my thread. And that's all going to go along the bottom. So I'm just going to move the car for a moment. I'm just going to establish where this thread's going. So I'm just going to apply some glue. Something like that. just going to pull apart these threads. Now I am going to whiz to my sewing machine. I was debating about sewing or not, but I think I'm just going to whiz up and down along the bottom just to kind of make sure that that does kind of stay in place. Okay, so that's just a little bit stitched. Like I said, I just wanted a little bit of a line there, so I'm going to kind of tuck my car in underneath. So I'm going to get that glued down. Okay, so this then is going to get tucked in, as I say, in the grass a little bit over here. So I like to just use an acrylic block just to help press down a little bit. Okay, I'm so happy with this. I think this looks awesome. Okay, so now that we've got that, I just want to kind of check. So I've got thread, we've got rusty, create, I think we've created, but I think I might still, again with this, might write create. So again, just using that kind of sketchy style that I've used on the card just to write the word create, because we've created our picture, haven't we? So all that needs to be done now is the tab. Okay, so here is my tab. So I've punched out, I'm using again the same die that I've used for all of them. So I'm just going to very quickly just ink on the inside so that at least when that comes down it doesn't look quite so white. Then ink around the edge and on the other side. Now, because of the amount of kind of ink and stuff that's on here, this is quite sort of wobbly now, so I am going to back it onto another piece. I'm going to glue these two together before I put my thing on, because as I've said, I do want to use these for journaling. That might be a challenge for next year. So once I've got my 52 cards, next year the challenge is to actually write something down each week. I was having a discussion in the Non-Stop Papercrafts Facebook group, and somebody had actually asked, you know, do people actually use their journals? And I must admit, and I did say, I'm rubbish at that. I love making journals. I'm just really rubbish at actually using them, which is something I do want to change this year. Okay, so there's my card. Let's pop this on. So this was my template, so I knew where to roughly put my tab. It's going to be over my card very slightly, but that's okay. That's okay. Okay, then I've got my number 3, which again I used the punch that I showed in one of the previous challenges. Problem is a small die cut is trying to then peel the backing off, but we got there. So there's my number 3. And then just to help make it stand out, just as I've done on the other cards, I have just kind of drawn around the number. Okay, let's have a quick tidy up, shall we? So there's week 3's finished card for the Altered Index Challenge. I'm really loving how that turned out. I know we've only done 3 so far, but I'm loving how this collection is coming along. As you can see, I did kind of go around the other 2 numbers as well, just because I found that the craft sticker paper just kind of got lost on the tab. So I have gone around them with an ink pen. But yeah, so far, I'm just really loving how these turned out, and I do love this one. I love the kind of rusted effect on there. So I'm keeping all of mine in one of these, it's a acrylic tub, but it is for index cards, so I'm keeping mine in there. So I've got lots of room to grow, obviously, as we keep going throughout the year. I did have somebody asking me how else they could be used if you weren't going to keep them like this. The nice thing is you can obviously make these any size. They'd make a great journaling card because you've got lots of writing room on the back. So you could pop these into a journal. They should fit nicely into a pocket, or you could use envelopes, recycle old envelopes and create a pocket out of that, and then these can fit in because you can adjust the size. Yeah, whatever size pockets you have in your journal, you can just make them to fit. As I say, for me, I'm not using them in a journal. I'm keeping them in here. I'm hoping by the end of the year, obviously, I'll have a collection, and then next year I'll set myself a challenge to each week write something on the back. But obviously we've got plenty of time to be thinking about that. Well, thank you very much for joining me today and watching me create my 3rd card. Just a reminder for those of you that are joining in, the prompts were thread, rusty and create. So rusty was the colour, thread was the thing or the item, and create was the word. So create could also be the theme. We have created a scene, so I didn't have to have the word create on there. I just decided that I had a bit of space, so why not? I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do with these prompts. If you are going to be creating your own altered index, please use the hashtag alteredindex2024. It just helps myself and others follow along and see all the creativity. Well, thank you very much, and I will see you all in the next crafty video. Bye for now.